I'm Scott Allen Miller. This is my life living in Leon, Nicaragua. For a lot of you, you may be coming in 2025 for your first time ever to Nicaragua, and you probably have a lot of questions, as people typically do, about exactly how you will deal with money when you get here. What money do you need to have? How much cash should you bring? How do you do it? What are the mechanisms to use? What to expect? What do things cost? And so forth. All right, so today we're going to do our 2025 breakdown of what to do for spending money when you're coming for long-term, short-term, or just touring here in Nicaragua. We're going to get to that right after the bump. We've had a lot of episodes recently dealing with changes that were talked about the US dollar and how that's used here, how the Nicaraguan Cordoba works, and so forth. So if you're interested in learning more in a deep dive about very specific issues, feel free to watch those. We had those very recently. But what we're going to be talking about today is what you need to know as someone coming to Nicaragua who's new to the country in 2025. Of course, if you've been here before, we don't have any major changes this year, so anything you were used to, unlike what you've heard, there's a lot of fake news about this, there are no major changes. All those things that people have talked about, that's already happened in the past. There's no change. None of it came, all of it came into effect, and none of it affected anything because there were no actual changes for how money is used, and so everything is good. So if you're used to things, you are good. If you've talked to someone in the last maybe 5 to 10 years and they told you what it was like and you're wondering if it changed, no, their information should still be current. But for those of you who've never been here and don't have someone filling you in, I'm going to do so right now. So let's start with what currency we actually use here in the country. That's important to know. First of all, our national currency is the Nicaraguan Cordoba, and that's how it's pronounced. It is roughly, not exactly, but very close to 37 to the dollar. You can go to xe.com and see the current exchange rate, and the government posts the exchange rate. It is a single published rate. There is nothing you need to worry about if you're ever looking at doing exchanges. There's one rate, whether you go to a bank or the person on the street or you do it abroad, it should be essentially the same rate. There's going to be slight differences only from the overhead that they're charging you for the transaction, not based on the base rate of the money. It's not like you go someplace and you get way better in one direction than the other. It is not like that, so don't worry about where you go. Now, let's talk about where you exchange money. Exchange money is always done on the street. Sure, you can go to these other places, but they have higher overhead. The expectation here, the way the system is designed, is that money changers stand outside of banks or near banks, and they stand on the street. They have a whole huge amount of cash. You walk right up to them, you give them cash, they give you cash in Cordoba. Or if you have Cordoba you want to unload, you can go up to them and they'll give you US dollars normally. Sometimes euros and a few other things, but dollars for sure. A lot of people are worried about using cash exchangers on the street, and they think that they're supposed to do something else or that it's smart to do something else. That is generally true in most countries. It is not true in Nicaragua. The people standing on the street are the actual official money changers. They're representing the banks for all intents and purposes, but they give you your best rate, shortest lines, easiest everything. So there's zero downside to it, except that you're out in the sun in most cases. So Cordoba is our currency here, and we do use cash for a lot of things. We are a cash economy. But we also accept the US dollar. People will randomly accept other things. The euro or Canadian dollar, for example, could be used in some circumstances, but the US dollar can be used essentially everywhere. Be aware that they need very clean, crisp bills. They can't be ripped. People have no central bank for the US dollar here to exchange them, so it's not like using them in the United States where you can have a dollar bill that's barely hanging on. The bank can take it and issue a brand new one, destroy the old one, give out a new one. They can't do that here because we're not part of the U.S. banking system, so they need clean, crisp bills to be able to function. So just be aware that's one of the negatives to using U.S. dollars here, is that you have to take care of them in a way you don't have to take care of the Cordoba. This is one of the reasons we tend to avoid it. That and the granularity is much worse, right? A single Cordoba is 1/37th of a dollar, so more or less 3 cents, very roughly. So a single Cordoba gives you a lot of, it's pretty useful. It's about half of a nickel. But if you're using a single dollar bill, which is the smallest denomination you can use in US dollars here, no one's going to take a US coin, then you're at 37 Cordoba is the most granular thing. And there's a lot of things we buy that are like 10 or 20 Cordoba, like snacks and stuff on the street, or maybe a little drink. And so having only dollars can be just inconvenient or cause you to overpay slightly, which not a huge deal, but it can add up if that's the only thing you have. Basically, if you're going to be here for any length of time, you want to be working in Cordoba. It will make your life easier and a little bit cheaper out of practical reasons. But if you're only here for a day or two and you don't want to deal with any Cordoba, it's fine to just work in US cash. Absolutely fine. No problem at all. You're not harming anyone by giving it out. People have US bank accounts here, US dollar bank accounts here. So it's very easy to use the dollar dollar. It is completely a secondary currency here, so not a problem at all. Other currencies will be a hardship. There's also a set rate. Like I mentioned, not only is the bank and the people on the street doing their exchanges at a standard rate, all businesses have to use that same rate as well. So if you're paying one way or another at like a restaurant or a hotel or something and they give you a price in Cordoba, if you pay in dollars, that number should be predictable and fixed. It won't be floating around based on their personal opinion of what the exchange rate should be. Other currencies, yes, but not the US dollar. So as long as those are the things you're working with, it is very simple. For those of us who live here, we basically function in Cordoba all the time. A lot of tourists come in and use dollars. And of course, Nicaragua wants to encourage tourism. They don't want to do anything to make the dollar not be as friendly and usable as possible. So all the new laws that they have and everything are purely have been around transparency, ease of use, and standard pricing so that there's less confusion and less opportunity for something to be a little harder to understand. So all good things. So from a cash perspective, that's all you need to do. Now, how do you get cash here? Of course, you are allowed to bring cash over the border. Like most countries, Nicaragua has a 10,000 US dollar equivalency reporting limit, meaning if you're going to cross the border, you need to have no more than $10,000 of liquid instruments on you. That's gold, silver, cash, or whatever could be treated as money in some way. Cumulative can't go above 10,000 US dollars without needing to report it as something that you're importing. Just because you're importing does not mean there's a problem, but you've got to declare it and have a conversation with aduana or customs about it, and then they'll make a determination whether you're allowed to have it, if you have to pay something or whatever. I don't know anyone who actually tries to bring in more than 10,000 USD in cash instruments. I would not recommend it under normal circumstances. Why would anyone travel with that kind of cash? Need to rethink your life choices if that's how you're traveling. I do know one or two people out there who have talked to me about this and they're like, this is why, and they kind of had reasons for it. But in general, you really want to rethink that. In general, most of the world, as someone who travels all over the world, I have never once ever traveled with large amounts of cash. I've never had that be a thing that we should do, and I've never exchanged money before I've gotten to a country. I'm not saying there aren't times that both of those things make sense, but both are the exception and a very rare exception. They're not a quarter of the time, but it's not that, no, it's like maybe one out of every 40 or 50 countries would you want to do that. It's extremely rare and generally not in developed countries. Nicaragua is a very developed country. We have a very advanced banking system, central bank, internet, power, roads. Like, it's a very developed country, so you're dealing with modern things. We may not have a high density of them. We're a very rural culture with very loose population, a very low density population in most country. Even our capital is not very densely populated. It's not even our most densely populated city. That'll be Esteli. And so we don't have ATMs on every corner, but they're easily accessible. So any city, you're going to have ATMs. Every ATM will, one, accept your cards from all over the world. Very rarely have we had problems where people's cards wouldn't work, and it's almost always their bank blocking their card. Nothing here. As an American, everyone I know from the US and Canada, anyone I really know from Europe have had no issues. They just take a debit card and they can just use it at any ATM and take out cash. Every ATM dispenses Cordobas, obviously, but they also dispense dollars, which can confuse a lot of people that it's that easy to get them. Every time you go to an ATM, you get to choose which you're going to take out. You have to do one transaction at a time, so you get Cordobas or dollars, but you could, just put your card back in and get both should you want to have both for some reason. Very easy. So we don't recommend under normal circumstances bringing in more money than you need for a day or two. Of course, carrying a few $100, even $1,000 worth of currency is fine, right? That's a sensible amount, because what if you want to eat at the airport? What if you want to pay for a really long distance taxi all of a sudden and nothing's working? You just want to have cash. I understand. But $5,000, $10,000, those start to get really crazy. You don't want to be carrying cash like that. That makes you a target and increases the risk to all tourists by making people think that tourists are going to be really cash heavy targets. We want tourists to be cash light for just encouraging violent crime and petty crime, both types, right, to go away. We don't want people getting mugged because someone thinks they're carrying $10,000. We don't want anyone on the street to look like a target because someone else was carrying money. So we want to discourage that across the board, really, for tourists everywhere in the world. It's just a bad process. And if you're carrying a lot of money and anyone knows it, you're going to be like lighting up as a target for sure. While we're an extremely safe country, no one is safe when they're carrying around that kind of money anywhere in the world. Even in Europe, you're going to be a bit of a target with that kind of money on you. So you don't want to be carrying large amounts of cash. That's just bad as a general adulting practice under normal circumstances. But you don't need to. Have enough to get through a day or two and make sure you're able to get to an ATM. Make sure you have a debit card. Go to an ATM and take out the money that you need for the next few days. Don't carry large amounts of cash. Make multiple ATM trips. Of course, like I said, we are a relatively agrarian country with a low density of population, low population density. So if you're going to be traveling around some places, like you're going to be hanging out in Las Pinitas, a beach that I show pretty often, or you're going out to the island of Ometepe, or maybe you're going out somewhere in the autonomous regions, you could end up pretty far from an ATM. So plan ahead. If you're going to be away from the cities, yes, carrying a little bit more cash could make sense. You may need to have enough cash to get through a week or so. Normally in those locations, you're going to be spending less, though. Places like that typically work, especially when you're spending cash, are very low cost. So it's rare that you would need very much money, be gone into an area without an ATM for a long period of time, and be spending very much per day. Could happen, but definitely, again, the exception, not the rule, and just plan ahead. You should know that you're going to be doing that. It shouldn't catch you by surprise under normal circumstances. So accessing cash in proper amounts in the currency that makes sense, extremely easy once you're in the country. The other question that comes up a lot is, can I use credit cards? And the answer is yes. In fact, they work really well here. I would argue possibly easier than many of the countries that I go to. Probably not as easy as like the US, but much closer to the US than what a lot of people think. We have extremely high density of credit card usage. One of the things that's great here is essentially everywhere, I can't remember the last time that this wasn't true, takes MasterCard, Visa, American Express, and Discover. The last two being pretty surprising. The first two, of course, they take, but that you can use basically any functional card from the United States or Canada and it works here is really fantastic. And yes, they can use the chip readers, and absolutely they use near field communications, the NFCs, that you just tap the card and you're good to go. You generally can also use Google and Apple Pay mechanisms, so you don't even have to carry cards. I know very few people who do that, so we don't test it very often. But tapping to pay with advanced modern credit cards, every day, everywhere, super easy. Now, if you're getting street food, they're going to be cash. You're just doing snacks, getting onto a bus, you're taking public transportation, and when you're talking about items that are under $3 or maybe $4, that's going to be cash transactions. But if you're going to the grocery store, you're going to the corner market, not the pulperias, that little people just selling things out of their homes, that's going to be cash. Normally, some do take cards, but if you're going to like the super minis, like the Super Express, or the gas stations, you're buying gas, any of those little mini marts that are air conditioned, any real restaurants where you're like sitting down, like you would expect all of them to take credit cards, and of course hotels and things like that, credit cards are no problem. Credit cards are of course normally safer, so we recommend them heavily for travelers. And plan ahead, make sure I have videos about this, so go watch those. Make sure you have at least one credit card, if not like me, 4 that give you zero cost international transactions and give you cash back or some kind of points for the things that you're doing. And you will find that the already low cost of everything in Nicaragua will be that 1% to 3% even cheaper, because you're getting that cash back or that bonus of some sort, those points to use on a flight or a hotel or whatever. And if you really pay attention and maximize which cards you use, you can get a lot out of those point systems. It takes some work, so your mileage will vary whether it's worth it for you or not. But I'm really good about it. I know one card is good for hotels, one is good for fuel and so forth. And I maximize my points just by carrying the right cards on me. And it took 30 minutes of research, and now I know which one in my wallet to grab at different times, and I get better points for it, right? So little things like that can help, just general traveler's advice. But because we take so many different cards here, you can have multiple ones and do that here in Nicaragua, no problem at all. Even if you're just here on vacation, all these things are very accessible to you because it's such an easy system. So generally, that's what we do. As someone who lives here full-time in Nicaragua, we never bring in large amounts of money. We do have the ability to do wire transfers. If for some reason you wanted to open a bank account here and transfer in a whole bunch of money, you certainly can. You go through all the normal international money laundering checks and balances systems. You have to report to Nicaragua. You have to report to whatever country you're sending the money from. You have to verify things and verify ownership of bank accounts. But wire transfers are basically the same here as they are anywhere else in the world. The international wire transfer system is pretty standardized. So it'd be the same as doing it between the US and Canada, or Canada and Mexico, or Mexico and Bolivia, whatever. It's all very uniform. So you can do that to here without a problem. But generally, people spend so little money here that unless you're buying a car or a house and actually buying, not like getting a monthly rent, you're going to work through an ATM. Now, people do ask what the ATM fees are. They're relatively reasonable, but they're far from zero. So the best one that I have found is BanPro, which allows me to take out $800 for a fee of $4 or 0.5%. As long as I do that, I'm happy all day. Lefise and BAC are much closer to each other. One of them, I believe, is you can take out $500 for $4 fee, so the same fee but a lower max, and the other I think is $400 for $4 or $500 for $5. So the best price I see is a 0.5%, and the worst I see is a 1%, and one falls in between, but closer to the 1%. So that's kind of the range. When you're on vacation, you're not going to be too worried about that. But if you're here doing any large amounts of transfers, then BanPro or anyone giving you the 0.5% rate at the ATM is going to be worth a little bit of effort. For me, it happens to also be my close one, so I'm really happy that it's the most convenient, the most machines, and the best price. All work out for me. I'm just really lucky that I'm by my nearest place happens to be the largest number of ATMs anywhere in the city. It's perfect, and they're all BanPro in air conditioning in a single place. So very nice. There aren't tons of ATMs in the country, so sometimes you do spend some time hunting around for them. But they're starting to roll them out in some of the super minis and in the gas stations. So the ease of getting to them is improving pretty quickly. Already over the last 3 years, we've noticed a real change in how easy it is to get to the ATMs. And the ATM place that we go to went from 2 machines to 3, for example. Those same kind of things are happening everywhere. And when we first went to Ometepe, there was like 1 ATM on the entire island. Now there's a number of them from different banks. They're still few and far between, but you have options. If one runs out of money, you're not completely screwed. Little things like that are important to note, but in general, money and spending money here in Nicaragua is extremely, extremely easy, especially if you're coming from North America. Everything's going to border on being transparent. We don't think about money at all going between Nicaragua and the United States. I'm an American, so when I travel back to the United States, everything just works on the same system. I use the same cards in the same ATMs in the same manner without thinking. I pay for most things with credit card. If I'm ordering Pedidos Ya, which is our equivalent of like Uber Eats here, which is difficult to use if you don't have a local phone number. So that's something you may want to get if you're going to be here for any length of time, say more than a week, and you want to try home delivery. It's not hard, but you got to go to Claro and pick up a number. I think if you're going to go to Tigo, it's more difficult. Claro, you can get like as you enter the country normally. There's only the two, whichever one gives you a number. And once you have a number, we have a SIM card, so you can actually set up Pedidos Ya, an app on your phone. Then you can order through that, and I'm able to use all those same cards, right? I use my American Express on there. You can use Visa, you can use whatever, and just pay, and your food will be delivered, and it's just like using Uber Eats. You can also use cash for those, which a lot of things in like the US and Canada, they won't let you use cash for those kinds of things anymore. They want to be paid ahead of time. Here, almost always you're able to do cash at the time of delivery still, so if you have cash, that works out. I like to use credit card for those things. I just like to know that it's paid. I don't have to go out and make change or anything. I really appreciate the convenience of using the credit cards for a lot of things. So anytime I'm at a restaurant, a hotel, doing major shopping, we have malls and everything here in Nicaragua. If we're going out to go bowling at a fancy place, or I'm going out any kind of big event, always using credit cards. I don't want to carry around a lot of cash. I don't want to make unnecessary ATM runs. And the ATM, even if I'm getting that great rate, because I'll pull out exactly $800 and pay exactly $4, so I get exactly that 0.5% overhead. That's still 0.5%. I'm losing 0.5%. Instead of getting $800, I'm getting, well, I'm paying $804 to get $800. I'm losing $4 on that transaction. But if that same $800 is spent on one of my cards, I'm going to make $8 to maybe $16 on the points or cash back system, which is not a huge amount of money, but instead of losing 4, gaining 16, that's like $20 every time I'm doing an ATM transaction that is in my favor. Plus, it's more convenient and I don't have to drive to an ATM. It adds up really quickly to being a good benefit over time. So that's why I use credit cards heavily. Plus, you're just safer using credit cards, right? You can always check your transactions, and who wants to mug you for a credit card they can't use? Doesn't make sense, right? So the more we use credit cards, the more we just encourage a safer environment. Again, Nicaragua is super safe. Don't be worried. But one of the reasons we stay safe is by making good decisions that lower the risk for everyone. If everyone was carrying large amounts of cash, we'd be at much higher risk, as places that generally carry lots of cash often are. And that's one of the reasons why pickpocketing is such a big problem in Europe. They didn't get into credit card culture the way the US did. US has other problems, but pickpockets generally are not one of them, because people don't have a lot of cash. So the risk risk and reward ratio for pickpocketing in the US is very low. We try to keep it low here in Nicaragua as well, and it works out pretty well. It's one of the reasons that we're one of the safest countries in the region. So that is how you use money here in Nicaragua. And of course, if you have questions or comments, scroll down, ask them below. If nothing else, just say hello, but we love getting questions. And if you'd like to send in a video question and actually be on the show, by all means, all the instructions are down there in the comments, so you can do it there, and just send it to me and I'll add you to the show. We love it when people do that. It's so much fun. And if you've had any experience or things that have gone wrong with your money, of course, get down there and check that out. If you are wondering what to do about credit cards and other mechanisms as a traveler in general, we have some great videos that are a little bit older that will dig into that and help you learn what we recommend as travelers' mechanisms, because I've been doing this for a long time and have some insight on that. And as always, if you would be so kind as to support the channel, you can do things like subscribe, tell someone about the show. We have the link above, buymeacoffee.com/Scott Allen Miller. You can tip me with a coffee or 3 or whatever, and that helps pay for all the cameras and research and time and travel and stuff that we have to do to make this show. And if you are really interested, you can actually hit the join button right down there and join our membership here, which is $5 a month and helps make a commitment to keeping the show going through a regular small donation every month, which is so appreciated. And with that, I will see all of you tomorrow.